For my creative project, I would like to discuss the Great Bassinet and the impact it had on medieval Europe. The Great Bassinet was a helmet used during medieval times around 1430 to 1440 AD. It is thought that the helmet was from France, even though it was found in Sudan. The reason the Great Bassinet was thought to be from France is because the trading Jacques Coeur, who was the silversmith the King of France, was doing in Egypt. The bassinet represents an important event in history when the armor shifts from mail to plate armor, and also the use of glancing surfaces was introduced. Mail armor was made of small metal rings linked together in a pattern to form a mesh. Mail armor was lightweight, flexible, and offered great defense against glancing blows by an edged weapon and penetration by thrusting and piercing weapons. But the flexibility in mail meant that blunt trauma would often injure the wearer, sometimes causing bruises or fractures, and was especially poor defense against head trauma. Plate armor, on the other hand, like the Great Bassinet, was virtually invulnerable to sword slashes and provided decent defense against blunt trauma. The Great Bassinet also represents the introduction of glancing surfaces, which were smooth parts of plate armor intended to deflect enemy blows away from vital parts of the body. You can see the glancing surfaces on the Great Bassinet towards the bottom of the helmet, offering more protection around the neck. Even though plate armor started to replace full mail suits, mail was used to protect the areas between the plates of plate armor. The mail collar of medieval England is an example of a piece of mail used to protect the gaps of armor. In this case, the mail collar was used to protect the neck. The bassinet pictured also would usually have a face mask that could be flipped up or down at needed times. The helmets like the Great Bassinet were the first helmets used with a complete suit of armor and were used up until the last decades of the 100 Years' War, which was a series of battles between the Kingdom of London and the Kingdom of France for the control of the French throne, giving another clue that this helmet was created in France even though it was found in Sudan. The transformation from mail armor to plate armor also represents why weapons of the time changed the way they did. Weapons like the bow and arrow were incredibly useful and gave a big upper hand when used against unprotected soldiers on foot and on horseback. But when those soldiers started wearing plate armor, the bow and arrows were basically useless. Weapons like the poleaxe started to show up around the same time plate armor started being used. Weapons like the poleaxe had one side that was meant to puncture or crush plate armor. As you can see, this poleaxe was used to puncture plate armor, while this poleaxe was used to crush plate armor and cause massive blunt force trauma. The other side of the poleaxe was an axe and was used against unprotected enemies, and the spike on the top was used to puncture plate armor with thrusting blows. Because of plate armor, weapons had to start focusing on small points to enforce as much damage as possible. The bullock dagger is a good example of this. Used to puncture gaps in the plates, unlike normal daggers, it does not have any cutting edges, and is used purely to punch through armor or punch through gaps in the armor.